In this lecture, we're going to do an exercise and try to overload operators for our point class. And we're going to be doing arithmetic operators. But as a good exercise, I really want you to try and think about the operators that you're going to overload for your own class and try to think about whether they make sense or not. Because my golden rule is that just because you can overload an operator doesn't mean you should. There are dozens of operators in C++, and overloading all of them for your type is just crazy. You don't really need that. So before you overload an operator, you need to think about whether or not it makes sense. So does it make sense, for example, to overload the addition operator for a point object? Yes, it makes sense because we would want to add 2 points and get another point. Does it make sense to overload the minus operator? I think it also makes sense because you can just subtract the coordinates and get a result point that would make sense for some mathematical application or graphical application that you are doing. Does it make sense to overload the division operator? Well, I don't think that's really useful. But it might be possible to do the multiplication operator. For example, if you are doing some linear algebra stuff in your code, you might be able to do some vector multiplication or scalar multiplication. That might be something that makes sense for your application. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, does it make sense to overload the operator for my type? Let's look at this table here from CPP reference, and we're going to focus on arithmetic operators here. So for example, we can do the binary addition operator. We have done this and we have seen that it works. We can do the minus operator. So we can take 2 points and say point 1 minus point B. This is something that might make sense. We might do the multiplication. For example, if we are doing some linear algebra application, division doesn't really make sense. I can't think of a way the modulus operator might make sense. And as you design your class and overload operators, you're going to do some exercise and really look at the operators that you're going to need for your class. So in this lecture, what we're going to do is do the minus operator on top of the addition operator we have done before, and we're going to make it work, and we're going to play with this in the main function. Okay, so at the end of the day, what we want is to be able to do something like this. For example, we take a point, we say minus another point. We want this to work and give us another point that we can print through stdc out. We already know that we can use the stream output operator for our point class, and this is the syntax we're going to be using moving forward from here. We can also go down and do something like this, say P2 minus another point. We should get another point and use that to initialize point 4. And if we print these points, we're going to see the information printed out on the console. This is what we want. So the way we're going to do this is nothing new at this point. We're going to do a stream output operator, which is right here. It's going to print our point. We're going to do the addition operator, and we're going to do it as a non-member because we just have the stream output operator. So we must just follow the same structure and do our binary operators as non-members. This is what we're doing here. We're going to have a left operand, we're going to have a right operand, and then we're going to be adding the coordinates, the x coordinates, we're going to add up the y coordinates, and then we're going to get our result point and return it from this function here. We are going to do the same for operator minus. We're going to have a left operand, we're going to have a right operand, and then we're going to do the subtraction member-wise. So we're going to take the x coordinate from the left operand and subtract the x coordinate from the right operand, and we're going to do the same operation on the y coordinate from our point here. If we do this, the code we have on top here is going to work, and everything is going to work just fine. So now that you know this, we're going to head over to Visual Studio Code and actually do this. Okay, so here we are in our working folder. The current project is other arithmetic operators. We're going to grab the code we did in the last lecture and use that as a starting point. So we're going to copy our class files. We're going to copy the main CPP file. We're going to copy the VS Code folder to grab our settings. And we're going to put these in the current project. Let's do this pretty fast. And then we're going to grab this little thing and open it in Visual Studio Code by dragging and dropping here. This is going to be our class. So Let's look at it and see what we have. We have an output stream operator done as a member function. We don't want this. We already know that this is bad. It's not going to work in our advantage. And we have an output stream operator here, but we don't really need an input stream operator for what we're going to do here. So we're going to take this out, and we're going to go down and take that out. And we're going to hop over in the main CPP file and take out the code that is reading from the input stream. And then we're going to modify these things a little bit. But for now, what we want to do is to do the addition operator and the subtraction operator for our point class here. We're going to close the left pane here, and we're going to head over to our class, the point.h file, and we're going to do our addition operator. So let's go down and do this. We're going to make it in line because we want to do it in the header file, and we're going to return a point if we do the addition. The operator is going to be operator plus, and the first operand is going to be a point that we take by reference. So let's do this. We're going to call this left. And the second parameter is also going to be a point that we take by reference. We're going to call this right. We're going to hop over in the body of our function, and then we're going to return a point that we build by adding up the coordinates for our point here. So we're going to take left and do mx and plus right mx, and the y coordinate is going to be left my, and we're going to add right my. We can do this in our sleep by now, and because we want this to be accessing the private member variables of our class, we need to take this operator and make it a friend of our point class. So we're going to do that here. Let's go up and mark this as a friend. We're going to do this. And if we go down, we're going to see that the code here should work now. This is just fine. And we're going to grab this function and use it as a starting point to do the operator minus. So we can do this. We're going to do operator minus. We're going to take two parameters, a left parameter, which is going to be the left operand. We're going to take the second parameter, which is going to be a right operand, to our minus operator. And then in the body, we're going to do the subtraction. We're not going to do addition. So let's do subtraction here. And we're going to do subtraction here as well. And then we're going to take this function and also make it a friend of our point class. So we're going to go on top here, and we're going to mark this as a friend. This is going to do. If we go down, the code here should work. And we should now be able to come to the main CPP file and set up points and do addition and subtraction operations on them. And this is going to be super cool. Okay, so now in the main function, what we can do is set up a bunch of points that we want to play with. And we're going to clean this up a little bit because it's just nasty the way it was. So on top here, we're going to print the result of subtracting a point with 2020 and a point with 1010 inside. And we're going to get a point with 10 printed out because 20 minus 10 is 10. We can also do addition, and we're going to get a result point which has 30 and 30 inside for the x and y coordinates. Down here, we're going to set up a bunch of explicit points, point 1 and point 2. We're going to use them in our operations here. We're going to add up point 1 and point 2 and store the result in point 3. And we're going to do subtraction from point 2 and minus a point with 5, 5 inside. And these are the results we're going to get. If we print them out, we're going to see a 10, 10. For point 1, we're going to see a 30, 30 for point 3. And we're going to see a 15, 15 for point 4, because that's what we're going to get if we subtract like we have done in our operators here. So let's build and see what we get in this program. We're going to build with GCC. The build is going to be good, and we're going to bring up a PowerShell window we can use to do things here. We're going to clear and run rooster. And we're going to see that we're going to get 2 points here. The first one is going to be a 10, which is what we expect. The second one is going to be a 30, because that's what we're going to get if we add up a point with 20 and a point with 10 inside. That's what we're going to get here. We're going to go down and print point 1 to be a 10. That's what we see here. Point 3 is going to be a 30. That's what we see here. And point 4 is going to be a 15 because we're taking point 2 with 20s inside and we are subtracting 5 and we're going to get 15s printed out here. And this is really cool. This is really all I had to share in this lecture, showing you a few ideas and tips you can follow if you want to overload operators for your types. Again, the biggest advice I can give you is that just because you can overload an operator doesn't mean you should overload that operator, because overloading the operator must make sense for the problem you are trying to solve with C++. C++ is going to probably give you the ability to overload more operators than you need, but you have to do the job to choose those that make sense for your particular class. And if you need more information on operator overloading, you can come to your favorite search engine and do operator overloading with C++. And you're going to get a lot of entries you can use. I want to use CPP reference because this is my favorite piece of documentation for C++. And they are going to tell you a lot of things. In this chapter, I tried to make things really simple. But if you want to do any operator, this is a good place to start and see some of the starting ideas you can use. You see, we can really overload a bunch of operators here. And there even are pieces of code you can use as a reference to do your own thing. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to see how we can reuse other operators to do our own operators. And that's going to be really cool. So go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.